We're going to talk about partnerships. And in order to do that the right way, I want to bring on a personal professional, somebody who is a great friend of mine, who is the master of partnerships. Mike Shine is literally writing the book on partnerships. Let's give Mike Shine a round of applause. Mike, come on up.
Thank you, Walter.
So this segment, I want to treat it a little bit differently. This is a somewhat of a panel. Since I work with a lot of people and encourage them to do partnerships, I send a lot of people to Mike. And Mike is now writing the book on partnerships because, again, I've been listening to the community, listening to what the questions are and what the problems are, or as we like to call them, opportunities for us to go create training programs. The opportunity for this community right now is partnerships, how to structure them, how to make sure that you're identifying the right partners, how to make sure that they're moral, ethical, and legal people. And all of that is in the book that Mike is writing right now. And I'm excited for it to come out. But in order to do this before the book is out, we got to create more value. Mike, how did you find your first partner? In fact, before we answer that question, who was your first partner?
Well, I mean, I think you're looking for my wife, Brenda, but
Yes, that's the answer.
she's definitely my ultimate partner. First, last, alpha, omega.
She was there in the beginning and the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how did you meet your wife, and what was your first deal that you guys partnered on? What was the first deal you put together?
Oh, yes. So we both worked in Providence, and she was hired to be the receptionist for the whole building. There was 75 companies in there, and every day I'd walk up to get my mail, and the biggest smile you've ever seen light up a room every time And then she asked me to go find a book for her daughter, Samantha, which was actually Harry Potter. So we went to the bookstore together to buy the first Harry Potter book. And our first deal together was a single family house in Rumford, Rhode Island, East Providence. My friend and I were going to be partners. We found this house that needed a ton of work. It smelled, there were like 3 pit bulls in there. Allegedly, people were selling drugs out of this house in this amazingly cute neighborhood. But each one of the daughters who lived there had a boyfriend who had a pit bull. Padlocks on the bedroom doors and smelled horrible. But I had a friend of mine who did construction, and he found this house, and I said, let's fix it and flip it, like I was a big shot, like I knew what I was doing. And we went at it, and we were just about to sign a purchase and sales, and my friend Bill came back to me and said, my wife doesn't want me to have a partner. And so I was like, shit. And as soon as I went home and told Brenda that, she's like, let's buy this house. We absolutely have to buy this house. And what I've learned since then is whenever Brenda says buy a property, buy that property, because every property we bought, it's sort of a weird thing, kind of like when Obi-Wan says, these are not the droids you're looking for. When we drive by and you hear Brenda's voice say, buy that, it always works out like unbelievably well. So on that one, we bought it for 165 grand, put in probably 80, and we sold it like 2 years later for 320,000 because it was too small for our growing family. So crushed it in the profit department.
So Mike partnered with his spouse. In fact, my first house was the same deal. My girlfriend at the time, we went and we both split the money. We put the money down on the house and we made 34,000 with it. Later on, I had married her by the time we made that money, and we rolled that into our first 2 properties together. And in the divorce, she didn't have any money left for the next house, so I had the major deposit for the next house. And in the divorce, she was very reasonable with me. She only asked for $25,000 when she knew that the houses were worth about $75,000 in equity at the time. And so because I brought the whole extra down payment for that other property, she said, look, I don't want anything for that one, just the one that I put my money in with you. And so that's where that 25,000 that I ended up paying came from. So your spouse, even if things don't work out in your partnerships or your relationships, if you set the context well and you're in business with really good people, you can still separate that partnership, sell the assets, and end up in a really good situation. So Mike, I want to talk a little bit about how you qualify a partner.
So for me, I mean, but I feel it in my inner being. That's the first. I mean, that's not what I just do, but that is definitely the first thing. I have a knowing when I meet someone. So first of all, you have to have a good feeling about a person. That's definitely the first. Is you've got to know in your inner being that this person is a good person. But then I definitely go through something I learned through BNI, which was know, like, and trust. So you get to know them, you get to like them, and you get to trust them. And And that's paid off in spades throughout my career. You look for red flags. I mean, you could obviously, you can see if people have like financial issues. Also, people constantly tell you, I think Jen Sincero says that you're a badass. People tell you things right when you start talking to them, like, yeah, I just got out of prison. It's like, what? I think that people tell you who they are very quickly. And if you just have to be cautious that you're not looking at a deal and being so excited about the shiny object syndrome that you ignore that the person that you're choosing as a partner, they're just not good with their own finances. That's the key. And I mean, I've had partners like that sharp people, but didn't have my interests in mind. So
I like that. And some of the red flags that you pointed out are paramount because people dismiss them so easily. One of the red flags that I learned with you when we were writing the book was how somebody talks about money and how somebody talks about their spouse, or how they talk about other partners they've had, and how they talk about their boss. Like, some of these aspects cross right over, because how they see you in that relationship could end up being exactly the same way. And he's qualifying, is this person full of shit? Is this person loyal to their spouse? When I go to the strip club, Darina's right there with me. And Mike's loyalty to his wife, and if she doesn't want to go to a strip club or doesn't want him there, he's like, I'm not going. How somebody spends their money is going to dictate how they're going to spend their money in your partnership.
Yeah.
Moral, ethical, legal. I say this all the time, that you do business morally, ethically, legally. When you're listening to somebody and they talk about how they got away with something, that's a red flag. Small shit, like they will tell you who they are in small ways. Oh, I didn't pay my excise tax, or I'm working on a strategy so that I can get this product from this person for free, but I'm not doing anything for them. Be listening. Are they truly not doing anything for them, or are they adding value in a way that they're not seeing as value? That's okay. If somebody's adding value and it's like they just don't understand their own value, that's fine. But if because Darina says it to me all the time, she's like, I don't know why I make money. Like, all I did was have a conversation with somebody and set them up with the mentorship or the mastermind. I'm like, you added value. Trust me, you're changing their lives, empowering them.
Right.
That's okay.
And
But
one of the things Gwalter and I notice when we do this is if you hear someone say something and Gwalter chimes in, kidding, not kidding, you might be looking at a red flag. Oh, they're just kidding, not kidding. It's like
that's a good one. If somebody says, "Oh, I'm just kidding," they said it. It was a thought they had in their head. That thought will come back. Whenever somebody says kidding, it's a red flag. If they saw your reaction and they had to cover it up with kidding, that means that that's how they think. That's how they operate.
I had a friend of mine before I got married, and we were hiking up Mount Washington. And whenever somebody would be coming down, be like a couple, he would say a sort of subdued hi to the guy. But if the girl was like behind, then he'd be like, hey, to the guy. And he made a whole joke about the fact that he was like flirting with this person. And that's the type of red flag that you say, kidding, not kidding. And that guy ended up sleeping with my girlfriend 2 years later. So there you go. You see it. Red flags early.
The red flags are all early, and that is also in Mike's book. He talks a little bit about that situation also. With partnerships,
it's all a blessing. All a blessing.
It turns, your pain turns into your stories. So with partnerships, when it comes to setting them up legally, Mike gets a lot of questions about what's the right way to set up a partnership legally. Like, when somebody wants to take on a partner, they've done the moral, ethical, legal side, they've qualified this is a good partner for them. What is the right entity to put those people into? The right structure?
Well, you were talking earlier today about debt versus equity. So if you make a decision that it's equity, not debt, so if it is debt, then it's something as simple as a promissory note and a mortgage, and maybe a personal guarantee as well. But these are documents that any real estate attorney will have. You could talk to them, they have them in a template, and they're really easy to recreate. And I think it's kind of like the fruitcake. There's really only one note and mortgage that's been passed from attorney to attorney all around. So you get that same fruitcake for years and years for Christmas. Yeah. Anyways, but yeah, so those notes and mortgages, that's on the debt side. And people always ask, oh, what's my agreement on a debt? And it's like, no, it's just a promissory note. That's your promise. It's your promise to pay. And then you have a mortgage that gets recorded, and then everybody knows that there's a debt obligation. When it comes to equity side, we tend to use LLC. So LLC is the first. Some people do it in a trust for extra protection. I see LLCs that are created out. I'm in the middle of this right now. We have an LLC that we created down in Florida, but it's got two other LLCs as the members of that LLC. So you've got further protection, and everybody's protected all the way along.
So the hardest part, let's give Mike Shine a round of applause. That's a good point. The hardest part is identifying whether the partner is worth partnering. The hardest part is identifying whether the partner is worth partnering. I'm gonna talk about that in a second. But the easy part is the structuring. Don't try to structure it yourself. Just give Mike a call and say, hey, this is what I'm looking to do. What structure should I use? In this way, you can start focusing more on evaluating your partners and evaluating your deals. All you're looking for in this world is human capital to partner with, a deal, a business or a piece of real estate to go and operate. Those two pieces are the only thing you should ever be looking for. And when you have the legal side of it, just have a conversation with Mike. Just say, hey, this is what I'm looking to do. He's a great attorney when it comes to partnerships. It's what he's built his whole business around, is closing deals and partnering with people.
It's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle. You're looking for someone who has skills that you don't have or don't want to do. I think Walter and Ron are a perfect example of that. And that's why they're the envy of the community, because there's stuff that Walter does really well that Ron would never, ever want to do, and vice versa. There's stuff that Ron does in such an amazing manner that Walter's like, no effing way. And I actually, this community, I actually found Ken Hoffman because I was so jelly of Walter and Ron. I just put in the chat, I need a Ron. And Ken Hoffman texted back. He's like, I'll be your Ron. So then I said, awesome. And I said, where do you live? And he says, North Kingstown. And I said, get the fuck. We both live in the same town. I don't even know how that happened, but he does things that I have no desire to do. For example, when we picked up the 15 units we bought in Fall River, he wanted to go to the inspection and spend all 7 hours with the inspector, walking through every room. And he's like, Mike, are you coming? I'm like, I'll come and see the property for a half hour, but I think I'd like to I'll go out to lunch with Walter instead. So I'll see you later. But on the other hand, I'm fortunate enough to have money in the bank. He did not have free money rolling around. And so it was the perfect relationship, and set boundaries at the beginning. I'm like, I am not ever going to Fall River to fix a toilet. So if that's the partner you're looking for, that's not me, because I'm not doing it. And I said, we can even get a property manager, which he agreed that he wanted a property manager, but he manages the manager.
And I want to point out that Mike just said something that's really key to each one of you. He said, I have money in the bank, but on a recent deal that they just did, he didn't have the money in the bank. He had to go and reach out to somebody who had the money in the bank. He leveraged a relationship that Mike took the time to build. When Mike was down here in Florida, I invited him out to hang out with one of my lenders, and Mike made the time to go and hang out with us and ask questions and show interest in this gentleman. So when an opportunity arose, Mike didn't have the money in his bank, but he had access to money. So sometimes being the person with access to money makes them a great partner, or being the person with access to money makes you a great partner.
I could add to that. The story gets better than that. He led me to another person that he knew, who said, yeah, I can do the deal. You guys are all set. It was to refinance. We're supposed to close on June 30th. And his friend called us and said, oh, my investor says he can't do this. So now Ken is calling me. Now that's not Ken's forte, is to find the money. It's just not what he does. That's always been my part of this whole thing. So I sat there and I just said, let me make a phone call. So I actually called the person that Walter introduced me to. And this guy picks up from a sailboat in Greece. He's out with 4 couples at 10 o'clock at night in Greece, picks up the phone, says to me, I got you. That's all relationship. He's like, I said, we've got to close June 30th. He's like, I got you. He's like, I'll call my lawyer tomorrow. And he hung up the phone. That's just so nice of him to call when he's out with 3 other couples, drinking, having fun, halfway around the world. He calls me back in 5 minutes. He says, oh, I forgot what time it was where you are. I just spoke to my attorney. You're all set. I was like, what? That's the power of relationships. Yeah. And it felt good for me because I'm telling you, Ken does so much, like turning the apartments that needed to be turned, getting rid of a couple of tenants that were not cooperating. For me to call Ken up and say, hey, Ken, don't worry about it. You just chill, keep doing what you're doing. Everything's working out. Yeah, it's awesome.
The power of partnerships, I can't stress it enough. It's the reason Ron and I are able to leverage as high as we are. It's the reason that this community we're able to leverage so much and build really, really strong businesses within the community. And recently, Dorina asked me, she said, what if somebody wanted to get back into the mentorship? If somebody wanted to jump back in and get more value to the new members that are coming in, like see who's coming in, work with them, and of course, use it as a way to reinvigorate themselves, reading the books again, going through the process again with the coaches. And I told her, yeah, that's a great idea because it strengthens the community. It gets more partnerships put together. Mike Shine only was introduced to Ken Hoffman because he was in the mentorship. As coaches who are in the mentorship all the time, we get access to people who are constantly coming through. We're getting access to new partners. It's the same for anybody who's been through the mentorship. You can treat it almost like a booster shot, which came from, and sometimes the mentorship is like that. So you can take the one shot, or sometimes it makes sense to take the two shot to make sure you got through it the right way. So we're going to be talking about that with more people, offering it to our past members and saying, hey, if you want to come back in and meet the new community, meet who is in here, this is a great opportunity to reinvigorate yourself, get to the next level. The other aspect is the mastermind. The mastermind allows you to spend a lot of time with people and figure out where their strengths are, what their stories are, if you like them or not. And the other feature, which more recently Ron and I opened up, is the inner circle, which is now our actual partners, people we've actually partnered with in South Coast who have their money invested with us, and we have their best interests at heart, where we're buying real estate together. So there's multiple ways within this community that you can find partners. Hands to camera if you know that's valuable. I agree. We only create and build valuable assets, valuable things that can improve people. I love it. Let's give Mike Shine a round of applause. That's partnerships. Partnerships are the power that you could have if you only trusted yourself, if you only loved yourself enough to say, I'm not doing the shit I don't want to do, and I'm getting half of everything anyway. I'm going to do the stuff I'm good at. I'm going to find somebody who's good at other stuff. Go ahead, Mike.
And that's something that I've really gotten out of this whole relationship with Walter and this group, is that you should be unapologetic about what you like and what you don't like. I never knew that until I started listening to Walter, that I didn't have to apologize for the fact that going through numbers and things like that just is like paint drying to me. And it's just great, the freedom to know that there are other people out there that are very different from me. So yeah, it's an awesome part of being part of this community. Yeah. Thank you, Walter.
You're welcome.
Yeah.